Hey friends, welcome back. I am Jason Salyer, and this is my good friend Joe. He is a former Special Forces medic, and he has years of experience in the Middle East. And today we're talking about Israel and the conflict that's going on currently right now in Israel. What happened? What does it mean for us specifically? It's hard to believe anything really these days, especially on the news. I don't believe anything really on the news. I take about 10% of it, and that's probably about the truth, maybe. So, to your knowledge, what is actually going on in Israel right now?
Well, I think the only thing we can say for sure is that one group attacked another group, and the other group is now responding to the initial attack. And I say that because if we back up a bit, I'm very clear on this that, having been to the Iraq War and seen the operations there, I can tell you with a fair degree of certainty that what you guys were learning back home based off what the mainstream media was reporting was, hardly accurate.
Yeah.
I mean, you knew we were there, you knew there was fighting going on, but the various players and the motivations, I mean, the mainstream media
None of it's
was
true.
entirely off the mark. And
Like you told me a story one time of I think you were watching the news and it was live.
Yeah.
Like reporting to you live now from blah blah blah. This is happening, and you're like, you're there, and it's not happening.
So yeah, I was in my house and we were living in Baghdad, and we watched the news too, like anyone else. Every now and then, they'll tell you something true.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember one time they were talking, and I don't remember who was doing it, so it would be unfair for me to point to a news station that did it. But it's supposedly live footage of a firefight that was happening, and I remember thinking, "Oh crap, that's not far from here."
Yeah,
Like
I should probably get ready.
like I can see that from my roof.
Get out of your flip flops and put some real clothes
And then like I need to get dressed like an adult.
Yeah.
And I remember we went out on the roof and we're looking, and we got the binos out and we're looking, and we're like, this is not happening. It's not going on.
The lies.
It's not going on.
Yeah.
Now something might have happened earlier or later or whatever, but it was being reported as live, and I'm looking at it like, we're looking at the TV and we're looking at this like, this is not happening. Like,
Yeah.
So it's just not true.
Yeah.
So, and there were many times in the Iraq War alone, not to digress into a different venue, but I had seen firsthand where the mainstream media, either intentionally or negligently or politically, or whatever their motivations were, simply just what they're telling you just isn't accurate.
They're after views and trying to make money, just
They were just trying to paint a picture that they thought would sell.
Yeah.
And
Which
there's
is
no
really
reason,
frustrating.
and there's no reason to suspect that that's not what's happening now.
Yeah.
So
all right. So to the best of our knowledge, what's happening right now in Israel is that one group of one group attacked another group in Israel. To the best of our knowledge, we know this. And as far as we know, a lot of civilians were harmed. Mm-hmm. I think the most recent I saw was well over 1,000 civilians were killed. I think
can believe that.
Somewhere along the lines of that. Whether that's true, exaggerated, not exaggerated enough, I don't know. We'll never know probably. But regardless, one group, the Hamas is what they're saying, has attacked Israel with missiles, hand-to-hand combat, fire, basic firearms and whatnot.
Paramilitary forces.
They've gone in and they've kidnapped individuals. They've killed people, even as far as babies and such as that. Is from what I've heard. I don't know if that's true, but seems to be some major atrocities happening over there that is extremely unfortunate for the innocent civilians that just want to be left alone. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah, I would agree.
Are we on the same page here?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think what most people like you guys watching right now, I think what you guys are probably interested in, there's not really much we can do overseas. There's almost nothing we can do to control what one group of people do to another group of people, regardless of how terrible it is. We can march in the streets and hold up signs all day long, but I'm probably going to bet that does absolutely nothing for those people that are actually in the midst of this. So what I think most of you are probably concerned about is, what does that mean for us? What's happening in Israel right now mean for us, and how is it going to affect our lives?
That's a big question.
Mm-hmm.
I have a more practical libertarian approach to geopolitics as a whole. Let me preface this by saying I think American foreign policy has been unhelpful to the American people for quite some time. And whether we like it or not, either directly or indirectly, we've been supporting both sides in most conflicts.
Trying to make money off of both sides of the
Well, I
conflict.
mean, on its face, it seems like they're trying to make money, but let's give them the benefit of the doubt, saying that they believe this is the best way to kind of appease both parties, right? It's a policy of appeasement. You know, some people call it foreign aid. I call it bribes. It is what it is, right? So, regardless of how we got here, I think most Americans need to ask themselves, like, well, what does that really actually mean for us here in the United States?
What is it? What's going to happen to us? Like, how is it going to change my life?
And then that discussion needs to be broken into two groups. There's American citizens who are strictly American citizens, and this is it. This is where we live. This is our livelihood. This is our cultural base. This is our homeland. And then there's the group I would, in general, describe as dual citizens, who have one foot in America and one foot at home, right? And to them, they're going to respond to this quite a bit differently than, say, someone like you or I. And I respect that, and I can appreciate that. But I think most Americans are only going to be able to affect that part of them that's in the United States. Like, we are not dual citizens as by and large. I have some sympathies for the immigrant community, but at the same time, it's like, well, look, we can only deal with what's inside our borders effectively and reasonably. And I hold that opinion based off the fact that I think these groups overseas are capable of managing their own affairs. They are. I don't think they need our support.
By America getting in the mix of this, is it going to be helpful or hurtful?
Hurtful. Like, and there's selective moral outrage. Okay. We saw this with Ukraine and Russia. Nobody's saying anything about the Armenians. Right?
Nobody cares about them.
Nobody cares about them. And that's just a sad fact. Like, that's happening right now. Okay. There's people that believe we have some type of historic connection to other groups that prioritize over others.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, we've got this long-standing, what's the loyalty to Israel and them to us, that we have to make sure that we're always there for them no matter what kind of
Listen, that's an
situation.
opinion. I can respect you holding that opinion. I'm a little more pragmatic in that I don't see it as a two-way relationship. I'm not saying it's a bad relationship. That's not my position. But I see it as a one-way relationship. In fact, most U.S. relationships with countries overseas are one-way. We simply do not gain from these relationships. And what I hear that we get in return is a bunch of, untangible, vague benefits. Oh, they're sharing it. Okay, they're sharing intel for what? What intel?
Right.
I don't see their troops in American, these things aren't happening. Maybe it's something economic in the trade side of the house, but again, the U.S. is the economic powerhouse here.
Sorry, hold on. Damn. Okay, carry on.
So, the United States, if they want to be, right, and I think most Americans want to be, though our leadership may have other plans. The United States, if it wants to be, can be completely energy independent, completely food independent. Could be.
Yes.
And from time to time we are. And nobody, and I mean nobody's making the argument towards what we gain with these very liberal immigration policies, these trade policies, these foreign aids. Like, what do I get living in the middle of nowhere, Georgia? How do I win? I know my taxes go up considerably.
Special wartime taxes.
Right. I know that our security at this point is almost non-existent with the border being open. And it's not just the southern border. We got problems with the northern border too. know,
The Canadians?
yeah, look, it's not the Canadian people, right? But
It's not the southern. You got to watch out for the Canadians. They're the ones, the
yeah,
Canucks.
America's top hat, right? But you know, the Canadian government, I think at this point, has shown who they really are. Same thing with the English government. A lot of these countries, look, there is some benefit of being, you know, in general, of being good neighbors to other nations.
Sure.
But to call them allies, what do we win? What do we win by these relationships? So I'm more of an isolationist when it comes to American foreign policy. And I would say that my opinion on the Israeli issue right now is no different. It's like, I absolutely sympathize with the families of victims. I've seen a lot of these atrocities firsthand, right?
Yes.
I've seen this. I understand what the brutality of the circumstance actually is. But we can't have selective moral outrage. And that's functionally what Americans typically do.
Selective moral outrage.
Yeah. The best example I can give, the most obvious example, was a few years back when Obama was president and the Syria stuff was going down. Everybody was upset that maybe 1,000 people were killed by some unknown chemical weapon, just the moral outrage that was being presented. But nobody was upset over the tens of thousands of people being killed by conventional munitions.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you guys have to weigh what is the tragedy here?
It's I mean, in one way, it's similar to the ridiculousness of people wanting to save the whales, but no care at all for the ugly animal.
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
And that's unfortunately that's how I think most folks in the West, we've been so pampered and protected for so long that, you know, we don't actually know what real problems are. Countries in the Middle East do have real problems.
Right.
They've got real problems. And I don't think the everyday American has enough background, enough objective data and information and lived experience to really appreciate what's going on over there.
Right.
Again, I'm intentionally not choosing sides. Like, I don't think what happened to the citizens of Israel was legitimate. It was valid. It was barbaric, or it was barbaric. It's not something that this day and age that we should accept.
Yeah.
But I'm also realistic about, look, war is hell. It's hell. The Geneva Conventions I think is a good idea, but let's face it, only the Western nations are following it. Okay, if you know, by and large, are following it. I think it's a standard that as Western civilization only we adhere to. If you go outside the United States, you know, look, people are chopping heads off. That's the world, y'all. That's the world. And you know, right now I'm not supporting Hamas, but what do you think the families, men, women, and children that have nothing to do with the Hamas and the Gaza Strip are going through?
Just happen to live there.
They just happen to live there, right? They're just going about their
Well,
lives.
it's just like the current U.S. government doesn't speak for me. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
They're not speaking my language. They're not.
No, I don't support Joe Biden. So whatever he does. Now, do you think the other nations will differentiate between you and I and what Joe Biden's done if they invade this country?
No.
Absolutely not.
No, we're one and the same.
Okay. Yeah, we're one
based
and the
on
same.
location.
Yeah. So I sympathize with the victims, meaningfully sympathize and empathize with the victims on both sides of this equation. But war is hell.
Yeah.
You want some, you're going to get some. And I don't think Israel needs our help at all. They have their own military competency. They're fully capable of waging war. They've demonstrated it time and time again.
So us sticking our necks out there and getting in the business benefits probably no one.
My opinion is that the people who are in charge that have been trying to get us into war for however many years just want to go to war with Iran. And I think what most folks need to really consider is, well, what's going on domestically that we're not hearing about right now, because this is hogging up the news feed.
Because you touched on it in our last video, and it was basically if we get our armed forces, the bulk of our armed forces overseas, involved in some other conflict, not here, that makes us terribly weak as far as an attack on our home soil.
I'm not. I don't. On the surface, I think the military is not as effective right now as it should be. All right. I think we're fully capable of fighting a defensive war, but with our current leadership, progressive policies, the expulsion of the best war fighters, because that's basically what's happened. And they've been doing this for years. It's not new. Every time the military downsizes, it's always these arbitrary rules. It's never, hey, we need to shrink by 5%, so let's fire the 5% bottom performers. It's never that.
Should be that.
It should be that. That's what Lee Iacocca did, right? Mm-hmm. But it's not that. What it is they come up with these arbitrary rules that typically affect military cultural norms within certain organizations. And the best way I could put this is like sleeve tattoos. They let you in with them, everything's fine, you're in your career 15, 16 years, and then all of a sudden, well, we got a downside, so if you got a tattoo now, you're out. It's like, okay, well, who's got all the arm sleeve tattoos? It's the combat arms guys.
So all of the Navy SEALs are gone.
Well, but that's what's happening, right?
Yeah.
It's never, hey, the bottom five, because, we live in a politically correct world, and it's hard to understand the U.S. military from a macro sense. And I would tell folks, if you really want to know how the military operates, before you can get down to the tactics and the strategy and the doctrine, there's a report out there called The Department of Everything by Senator Tom Coburn. It's a few years old now. But you need to start there. It talks about discretionary spending versus, congressionally mandated spending and how the military is really funded. That'll kind of open your eyes up to how the DoD has just been this catch-all for a vast majority of spending. What happens is when they try to cut DoD spending, rarely does it come out of those pork bills. It usually comes out of the combat arms fighting capability. And it's often presented as we're all taking cuts. Like, no, we're not. Mm-hmm. The fighters are taking cuts. And people would be surprised at just how small the volunteer military is. It's very small. Mm-hmm. Very capable, but it is very small. Mm-hmm. And if we find ourselves in a position that we're in now where recruiting's at an all-time low because of these obvious policies that are just terrible on its face, and then we do get engaged in a major conflict, we will likely have to convert to go from an all-volunteer army back to a conscription army and institute a draft. Mm-hmm. And there are so many people in the DoD that are businessmen. They're not soldiers. They're not fighters.
Right.
Man, it's just a mess. It is a hot mess. The DoD needs to be massively overhauled. Mm-hmm. Man, we got so many generals and admirals that retire. It's revolving door, and they get out and work for the defense industry, where they get out and they work for foreign governments, and the State Department lets them. And the everyday American doesn't realize this is happening. Mm-hmm. Some of the stuff that's being instituted in the military, as far as I'm concerned, is so blatantly bad for the military. I got strong words for it.
You're trying to hold back?
Like, I think we're being set up.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're being set up to fail. Mm-hmm. And you use whatever word you need to describe that, but I think we're being set up to fail. And if we willy-nilly, because everybody's emotions are running high right now, commit the armed forces to a conflict. Look, Iran will fight. Mm-hmm. We'll whip them. All right? They've been fighting us in Iraq, and we whipped their ass in Iraq. But it's going to be devastating. We're going to take casualties, right? It's not going to be clean. It's not going to be pretty. It's going to be prolonged. Mm-hmm. We're out of fuel. We're out of ammo. We're out of leadership. Like, this is the worst time for us to get engaged in a war that, frankly, doesn't benefit us. Mm-hmm. Right? What do we win by toppling Iran?
Yeah.
Like, the American, and I hate to use the word, but the American sheep are just going to demand something be done, and they're not going to take stock of where we're at and who we are and what we have. All right? They're going to be reactionary to this stuff. and they're going to get us involved in something that we don't need to be involved in.
I mean, I see clips and videos of people like marching in the streets saying, you know, support Israel, and then the other side support Palestine, right?
Okay, well,
how many of those people marching in the streets are ready to saddle up?
none of them.
Yeah.
None of them. None of these people that are calling for this stuff. It's like everybody who put on that stupid Ukrainian flag on their cars. Not one of them were going to go.
Yeah, no problem. We'll send you over there.
Yeah, not one of them were going to go.
Stand with
That's
Ukraine?
what I'm saying. If there's going to be a draft, right, the first people that need to get drafted are the ones who put those stupid Ukrainian stickers on their Facebook page.
Yeah.
Right? They're first.
Yeah.
Right? So, Israel is perfectly capable of defending their borders. Perfectly capable. And if we start backing up Israel, we're also saying, what we're also saying by proxy is that we're okay with Israel's methods, and we're okay with the way Israel does their business, just cause. It's like that's a bold statement. That's not to criticize Israel. It's like they have a different way of doing business, right? They have a different value system than us. That's fine for Israel, may not be fine for the U.S. We may be signing up for consequences that we're perhaps not thinking through.
Yeah.
We also got to consider, look at all these political movements in the U.S. that have, as far as I'm concerned, they've removed their fig leaf. They've come out and openly supported terror. And they've called it anti-colonialism and this. Basically what they're stating is they're letting you know that this is what they expect for you, and they're okay if this happens to you right here in America. And we have open borders. Like right now, we need to be focused on the United States.
Right. That's where my next question was going. Is that what does it mean for us? Like this conflict overseas. What does it mean for us? What can we actually do? What can we do?
Well, locally, there's not much you can do. You can start building community. I think that's something you and I have talked about time and time again, is building community, getting to know your neighbors. And if you're not in a place where you can get to know your neighbors, you need to move to a place, take the pay cut.
Yeah.
Take the pay cut.
Yeah.
And you need to start building communities of like-minded folks.
People you can trust.
People you can trust.
And you won't, that's the thing, a lot of people feel like there's always going to be more time to do these types of things, but building communities like you just mentioned and finding people that you can actually trust takes a lot of time. You can't do that overnight. You can't do that in a weekend. Can't do that watching a football game. Like it takes years of investing in other people to actually build a strong enough relationship where you can count on those people and they can count on you.
We need to focus on building strong men. Men have just been getting, males in general have just been getting pooped on forever. And the results are in. I mean, I look around and like if we get invaded or Hamas does a terror attack, like who's actually going to defend? Most of these guys are out of shape.
Yeah.
Too busy drinking beer and watching football. And the young men are too busy, playing video games and pursuing hookup culture and stuff. So none of that stuff is good for you. None of that stuff is good for your community. And it puts us all at risk. You being weak puts us all at risk.
Yeah.
So the best thing.
So what can we do? So getting back to what can we do? Should we be training? How should we be training? What are your recommendations? So those of you that don't know and haven't seen Joe on any other videos, Joe has a lot of experience in combat situations.
Yeah.
A lot. Years and years.
Everybody should focus on individual tactical skills as a matter of responsibility and professionalism. If it is that you're going to carry the power of life and death on your hip, a sidearm, you owe it to yourself and those around you to master that weapon. Right?
Agreed.
You don't just fill out your form, get a concealed carry weapons permit, and you're good to go. Again, you're not helping yourself and you're not helping anybody.
You're probably more dangerous to yourself and others than you are to the enemy.
Well, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not arguing because I don't want to go down the road because the anti-gun folks will latch on to that. It's more about taking pride in your craft, right? If we were in the medieval times and I got a sword, am I just going to walk around with a sword on my hip, knowing I'm going to get my ass whipped if I got to go up against a fighter? No. I take pride in it's a martial art.
Mm-hmm.
It's getting your black belt in firearms technology. Modern tactical combat is the most lethal form of combat we've produced as a human species yet. So you need to get on board with it. You should strive to be a hero,
Mm-hmm.
right? You should absolutely walk out in the community knowing that if something goes down, you're going to be there to do something about it. Because that's what a healthy warrior mindset is. It's like I am a value added asset to my community and my family as a whole. Not, oh, well, I'm just going to do self defense and I'm only going to worry about myself. That's who needs that?
Mm-hmm.
You are a member of, you should be a member of some type of wolf pack. Other strong men who share your values, who I don't have to ask the guys in my life if they're going to, help defend my family if we're at a barbecue and something. Like, I know they're going to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know I'm going to do that.
Right.
And
that's really comforting, right?
it is, because I've heard many times when all our spouses are together, they sit around and they take pride in the fact, and they love the fact that they know when we're all together, nothing's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they know that.
Yeah.
And they really derive a sense of security and safety from the fact that the men in their lives are not only prepared to, but capable of,
And willing.
to do what they need to do.
Yeah, something I talk about a lot, and I've mentioned in other videos, is that I want to be the guy that shows up to name the setting, and people can relax a little bit because they know that I'm going to be there to take care of problems as they present themselves. Now, am I perfect in every way? Am I some sort of judo ninja expert that's going to solve the world's problems immediately and do everything flawlessly? No, but I'm doing everything that I can, and I'm willing to be the guy that steps up and does the things.
Yeah, everybody feels more safe and secure when there's strong men around.
Right.
And relative to the chaos that you're seeing overseas, I'm not saying that they don't have that. I'm saying that at a minimum, you have to have that. Because we're not in control of a great many things in our lives. We're not in control of the border. We're not in control of who's coming over the border. We're not in control over the geopolitical situation of our nation. Like, look, certain civilizations aren't meant to coexist. They don't want to coexist.
They don't have a desire to
They
coexist.
have no intention of coexisting.
Yeah.
And we have to share borders with people who I don't want to say want our destruction, though they often articulate that, but certainly don't see us as equals. They see us as beneath. They see us as subhuman, less human.
Yeah.
And if the time's right, they might be happy to act on that or support those that do. And, look, the country's a mess, and you can't fix everything, but I know I can be, I can take care of my family. I can be an meaningfully active member of my community and be value added to them. And I think our situation, not to get into specifics of our situation, is I would consider a success story. It starts off with 1, 2, 3, 4 guys kind of chatting, getting to know each other. And next thing you know, we have a fairly robust and extensive network of families where all the husbands and fathers kind of share in the same mission, like take care of our families, take care of ourselves, take care of our community. And it turns out not to be a big drain on your schedule. This is not like, you don't have to go to boot camp to do this.
Yeah. It's mostly enjoyable activities anyway.
Yeah, everybody's having fun. If you don't know something, somebody is absolutely happy to teach you.
Yeah, and going back to what can we do on my notes here? What can we do? Be willing to admit that you don't know
Bingo.
stuff. Anything, name it. Like, show that you have weaknesses. We all have weaknesses. There's a ton of stuff that I suck at, but I'm generally not afraid to admit that I suck at something, and I'm willing to reach out to someone like yourself potentially and get help and get better.
Sure.
To improve.
And those are real tangible strategies that you can implement that will, when you're first doing it, it may not seem like, the big win that you want. But with anything, you have to invest in it before the payoffs get here. You have to invest in yourself. You have to invest in your community. And without that investment of time and energy and resources, why would you expect the payoff to be there?
Right.
So a lot of folks just starting off on this journey to, I don't want to say self-reliance. Self-reliance is more of a virtue than a status, right? You can't achieve self-reliance, but it definitely fosters the sense of independence. I would say by and large, we don't require in our community the same level of police apparatus or police state implementation as other loose-knit. Good habits are better than good laws. Family-oriented, we're far more food independent than somebody living in a city. Because we're practicing what we preach, and in just a few years, we've come a long way. We've come a long way. There's been a lot of shared knowledge and ability, and I can't think of a major project that any of in our community's done without the assistance of
the
rest
crew.
of the community.
Or at least a couple of them. Yeah.
Yeah, and by saving them resources, it's just everything builds upon itself, and we become far more secure.
Agreed. Yeah.
We're not as susceptible to the political wins. Yeah, I think what's happening in the Levant right now is a mess, but ultimately it doesn't affect us. And our strive for independence allows us to be a little bit more objective. And that I care for the victims of the problems in Israel just as much as I care about the Armenians. All right, and to the extent anybody's getting hurt in any other battlefield, even what about the conflicts in Africa nobody cares about?
Right. The constant.
I don't want to be so snarky and to say, well, we only care about the groups that we make money off of, or there may be some truth to that, or that cynicism. But at the end of the day, tragedy, violence, and stuff, that's just part of the human condition. And the best thing we can do, I think, for a lot of these countries is lead by example. The Second Amendment is an excellent example. I think one of the silver lining to the tragedy, to the tragedy and the cloud that is what's happening in Israel is Israel coming out and relaxing their gun control laws.
Yeah.
That should be validation to most of the Americans around here that one of the things keeping you safe is in fact your neighbor with a gun.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's like,
There's no free pass
the king feels all safe in his castle, and he doesn't want his people having guns and weapons and their swords.
Yeah, because then he has to care about their opinion.
Right, yeah, because then they could potentially rise up against him. But as soon as his castle's under threat, he's like, you know what? You should have some guns and swords and stuff. You should hang on to those to protect the castle.
You're also seeing a split in the radical left, and there's reasons for it. But you're seeing a split. This issue in Israel and Hamas has caused some real divisions, and some of the more radical left voices that are out there. And I think that's a good thing because they were always unified by their status of victimhood and their position on anti-Western. Anything anti-Western, and with this group siding with this group siding with this group, the weakness that is their argument is being, shedding light on the weakness of their argument. Man, the world's a mess, buddy.
It sure is.
It's a hot mess. So again, focus on your family and your community meaningfully. It's not selfish. Altruism is not a suicide pact, right? Like the left would have you believe. It's not a suicide pact. In every way, I will choose my kids over strange kids. Sorry, that's just the way it is. And I don't feel bad about it. I won't feel bad about it. Because they are literally arguing to take food, money, and resources away from my kids to give it to other kids. And I feel bad for those kids, but I am always going to choose my kids over their kids. And they should do the same.
Right.
Right. But right now, with the borders being open, we are absolutely, as a nation, not secure. And our military needs to stay home and stay predominantly where they're at, with the domestic posture, at the very least until, the nation is secure again. There needs to be travel bans. There needs to be, from people coming in. Look, it just not everybody has America's best interest in mind. And you also got to consider too, all the nasty poison you hear about Americans and calling us names, calling us Nazis and all that stuff. That's what's being broadcast to all these countries. So a lot of these people are coming over here with the mindset that we're here for the taking, that we're less than them, we're scumbags, we're Nazis, and we deserve whatever we're getting. And you don't have to take my word for it. You just take a look at England. Look at the immigration mess that those guys are in. They are an absolute hot mess. And typically, anything you see in England will hit the U.S. within 5 years. Even less now. But if it's happening in England, it eventually get exported to the U.S. Or at least the narrative, the mindset doesn't mean it'll be successful in the U.S.
Yeah, I have some good friends that just left London because it's a mess.
It's a mess.
Yeah.
Western civilization isn't falling; it's failing. It's not even failing. It's being betrayed. Right. They've created the conditions where people are afraid to talk about obvious bad policies. It's like these policies clearly harm you. It's not even that they don't benefit you and they benefit someone else, and it's somehow, a neutral cost to you. They are bad for you. Like the energy policies and the green policies. All of these things over time serve to make us incapable of defense. Right now, the military is as powerful it is because it enjoys a strong economy, right? Trash that economy and you trash that military. We're getting rid of our strategic reserves. We've sent away all of our bombs and ammo. We're trashing our ability to fund military operations into the future. It's Cloward Pivens, the economic strategy instituted by those that are in charge globally has the Cloward Piven strategy of just spending and crush the economic potential. And the other thing I would add to a draft, and this is another hard pill to swallow, is like, who's going to get drafted? You think it's the thousands of people coming across the border? I think not.
No, it's your registered voters.
So all our men, all our men will
Yeah.
be drafted and exported out of the country while new men come in to replace us. And look, that's a tough pill to swallow, and that may be hard for people to hear. But none of these they're not undocumented. They're illegal immigrants.
Yeah.
Are going
They're
to
not
get
getting
drafted.
drafted.
They're not getting drafted.
No.
Right?
No.
They're not.
100%.
So, folks need to wake up, come down off that emotional thing. It's like what the Hamas did was bullshit.
Yeah.
And they get, the Hamas is going to get what they deserve. I don't think the bystanders, like, they came out with an open siege against Gaza, cut water, food. It's like, okay, well, look, that's their way. And hey, and war is hell. I can stomach the atrocities that come along with warfare. Make no bones about it. That is what war is. It is death. It is suffering. There will be innocents harmed in war. That is what war is. You have to get rid of this notion that somehow there's this clean, sterile, where only the bad guys...
Far away battlefield.
That is not
Good guys,
reality.
bad guys. Yeah.
That is not how it is. War is hell. And we should be willing to conduct it, but we need to be realistic as to what it is. If we have to come over to your country and whip your ass, then we need to turn it into a parking lot, send them back to the Stone Age, and leave, so that their great-grandkids will be telling the stories of why you don't mess with the U.S., right? Instead, we get in there, we're destroying these countries, and this is a very Western thing to do. U.S. is probably the best at doing it, but other Western nations are, they're destabilizing these countries. They're making massive amounts of money on their reconstruction, and through this destabilization, they're exporting all their military-age males to the West. But get out of here. Like, the last thing we need is another war.
Yeah.
Like, choose peace.
Sure.
I like Trump's approach. when they were trying to corner him on who he wants to win, Russia or Ukraine. He goes, I just want everybody to stop dying.
I want everyone to get along.
They don't have to get along.
It'll never happen, but I
Right?
like that. Yeah.
But it's like I don't want Israelis dying, and I don't want Palestinians dying. I don't want either of them dying.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm not going to pick sides. We need to stay out of it. All right? Don't be paying bribes and stuff for hostages and all these other things we've gotten away from. Like, obviously, I'm not happy with the direction this country's taken, but it's still entirely salvageable. There's going to have to be some hard decisions.
That's my next and final point. Is that what's the silver lining, right? Is there anything good for our country, for our community? Anything good, positive, going to come from this?
The Israel conflict, or just the mess as a whole? I think both. I think they kind of tie into each other in that those of us who understand that we're a constitutional republic and not a democracy, those of us who understand what Western values are and have been willing to implement them and want to live by those values, are awake to who our enemies really are and who our allies really are. And that's not something that's going to go away for a long time. The mess that we've been in with the radical left and their ties to what are obviously civilizational enemies of the U.S. and their willingness to throw you under a bus, it was like your message was heard. We get it. We know what you want to do to us. We know who you are. I think the most surprising thing is that many of them have felt this way for a long time. It's just now they're being open about it. So I think the silver lining to the cloud is the Americans that need to be awake are awake. There's no hiding who's on what side. All right. Don't know if this ends up in a national divorce. I don't know. I don't know if we balkanize. I don't know if we reunify. But complacency by the producers and the doers and the warriors are gone. All right. Nobody can afford to be complacent. And I think what you're going to see is moving ahead is our kids, our grandkids, are going to be raised with a new understanding of the value of our traditions, the benefit of our traditions, and they're going to see, and they're seeing it now, the cost of walking away from our traditions and what that's actually led to. Especially like divorce is at an all-time high, marriage is at an all-time low because we got away from traditional relationships.
Yeah.
We got away from traditional family values and have effectively abandoned our elderly to retirement plans and retirement homes. Like, what are our elderly going to do if Social Security runs out? And boom, what are they going to do? All their kids live in different states.
Yeah.
So it's going to get uglier before it gets better.
Yeah.
But the uglier it gets, the more value Americans will place on American values and principles. And it's those American values and principles that will pull us out of this. And the more people that get woke up, that are aware of what we've lost or given away through complacency, or the better off we'll be. But it's going to have to get ugly.
Uglier before it gets pretty.
Yeah, I mean, for so long, look at the budget. We've just been kicking the can down the road.
Right.
It's like, okay, look, stop kicking the can. Let it hit.
Let's figure out what to do with it, yeah.
Right? Let's just be done with it, because the sooner we're done with it, the sooner it's behind us. So as far as I'm concerned, the question is, look, we're never going back to the way things were. I'm not saying there's going to be a collapse, but it's just going to be uglier, and we're not going to go back. The real question is, who's going to decide the way ahead? Us or them? And by going through these dark and turbulent times and exposing the strength of our values versus the weakness and treachery of theirs, the more and more Americans that get on the side of, hey, you can't go back, but we can move ahead, you know, being family focused, you know, community focused.
Back to our core values
Back to our core values and
that
what we
originally
find.
built this country. Yeah.
And brought this country to prosperity.
Mm-hmm.
Our values got us to the moon.
Yeah.
Right?
If you believe that.
If you believe that, that's right. Our values got us to the moon, and they'll get us to the next place.
Mm-hmm.
If we abandon them now, then you'll only get as far as, you know, your new rulers have ever gotten.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I think our silver lining is that, like you were saying, people are going to wake up to the benefits of those core traditional values. A strong family, having a strong father in the household,
That's right.
is so much more. I mean, all the people that, you know, are anti Second Amendment and all that, they're going to be that way until it's time to protect themselves from the Hamases of the world that want to come and do us harm, regardless of what we, you know, whatever flag we're holding up.
Yes.
They're going to preach it loud and proud until that time comes, and then suddenly, oh, you know what? Having a firearm in the household is not such a bad thing. Having a strong man in the household is not such a bad thing. Yeah.
No, I agree with you. I think the worse things are becoming, the more value is being returned to the role of a strong father figure, a strong husband. People are getting away from the ideas of success revolving around wealth. Wealth can be an indicator of success, but for too long it's been the only indicator of
Right.
success. And we're starting to realize that more and more of these wealthy folks are really up to their eyeballs in debt. They're miserable.
They're not really that wealthy,
They're
and
not-
they hate their lives.
They hate their lives.
Yes. Oh, hello, cat.
But you know, having a good family and a good community will carry the day more often than not.
Yeah.
Again, I feel much better these days as I'm getting older and I'm not as strong as I used to be by having a meaningful relationship with a good, healthy community than I did when I was living for the glory of myself. Now, I could kick ass and take names.
Yeah.
But, you know,
You still got it, Joe.
I still got it. Yeah. But no, the community and the families, like I would tell kids, you know, hey, take the pay cut.
Yeah.
When you graduate high school, stay in your hometown and find a way to make it. Plant roots.
With every generation, make it better.
With every generation, make it better. If it sucks when you graduate high school, then you need to make it not suck for when your kids graduate high school, and not just jump ship, abandon your church, abandon your community, and abandon your family to go pursue a job so you can buy a nice car.
I like that. Yeah, a legacy. Leave a legacy behind you worth leaving.
Because look, the violence that you're seeing overseas is just air molecules away from us.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to say I'm not surprised it's happened yet. Like I said, I think
I am.
I think there's more tactical value until
Yeah.
waiting until armed forces are committed to where, because then the American population would also understand, hey, look, the army's overseas, so even if they were going to come, they can't come, right?
Yeah. I'm so shocked that the 9/11 hasn't happened again.
So I think if we got involved in a full-scale war with no ammunition, no fuel, no leadership, you know, our military forces would be sitting ducks to modern technology. And so we would be relying on the militia class of armed citizenry to defend this country, which would work.
Yeah.
But it would make things infinitely worse. Anyway, it's a mess.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think that our best option is to, by all means, send your thoughts and prayers. But that's about it.
Yeah.
Don't worry, Israel's fine.
Yeah.
They'll be fine.
They'll be just fine.
They've been fine this whole time.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Appreciate it. Leave comments. Tell us what you think about this whole situation. What is the silver lining? What can we do here at home? Should we be worried? Should we stay strong and not be worried so much? Thanks for watching. Thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't done so already. See you next time. I'm Jason Salyer with Survival Dispatch, and when disaster strikes, will you be ready? Power outages, natural disasters, economic collapse, threats can come in a lot of different forms. As a Survival Dispatch insider, you'll be able to gain the knowledge, the skills, and equipment necessary to protect your family when it really, really matters. For pennies a day, you can gain instant access to our team of survival experts that has decades of experience under extreme conditions. They'll provide crucial information on such things as stockpiling food, medical necessities, communication plans. We can deliver proven techniques to help you get home, shelter in place, or bug out safely. You will receive specific, actionable plans to withstand disasters from start to finish. Don't leave your family's safety to chance. As a Survival Dispatch insider, you can face the worst with confidence. We make disaster preparedness simple and affordable. Join our community of survivors today. Visit survivaldispatch.com to get started.